Welcome to The Merge, where faith and mental health meet. Hosted by LynnDee Horn, a licensed counselor and owner of Narrow Gate Counseling Services. The Merge provides a biblical approach to mental health and navigating life's challenges. Join us as we explore practical, Christ-centered solutions for mental wellness, relationships, and spiritual growth.
Well, hello. Welcome to the Merge podcast, where faith and mental health meet. I'm your host, LynnDee Horn. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, faith, mental health, and motherhood. My guest speaker today is Dr. Calvina Ellerbe. Dr. Ellerbe is an award-winning educator, a TEDx speaker, a writer, parenting expert, wife, and mother of 6 beautiful children, who provides practical insights for parents to develop a fulfilling parenting experience. Her life's mission is to help parents thrive, and her motto, which I love, is if we heal families, we will heal the world. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome, Dr. Ellerbe.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to support parents anytime I get an opportunity.
Yes. So that was a long list there after your name. And I think there's some others in there too, right? Like, haven't you been a doula or a birth coach and some things like that?
Okay. I'm a birth educator and certified postpartum doula.
Okay. Yes. So we're adding other things there, everyone. Okay. So let's just start by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself outside of what I already read and about family life. Like, tell me just about that.
Oh, that's so exciting. I did not initially want children. I'm such a strange person in that sense that I did not initially want children. And it wasn't until I met my husband that I was just like, oh. And part of that was because I'm looking at the world we live in. And I've always been a very sensitive person and very aware. I was one of those kids that would watch the news and come to my parents bawling. Crying like, Mom and Dad, oh my gosh, they're gone, they died. And they're like, what happened? And they're like, who is it? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm so sad.
I saw it.
I feel it. So I was always so sensitive to the world and I always had this connection to want to honor humans. It's this thing God gave me. And I did not want to add anything that I felt would make things worse. I'm like, there's so many people, there's so much suffering. Let me focus on that. So I don't need to bring anybody else here to suffer. That literally was my mindset. And so I was like, yeah, no, we're good on kids. I don't want any of that. And then met my husband and I just knew that he was the stability and safety that would allow for us to bring the good. So instead of simply worrying about what the world was doing, and how the world was broken, being okay to be responsible to heal the world. And that's why I wanted to have children. So family to me is the portal to truth, is everything. They're everything. When we can focus on that. So when you think of me, hopefully you think about family and the importance of everything. I mean, even as an educator and being a professor, I always understood that I was trying to study all these things and maybe we need to work on education and maybe we need to work on the government, but it's always through family. It doesn't really matter what the world is doing. If you are healed, if you're raised with a healed heart and a healed mind, you'll filter the world in that way. And that's how I've thankfully been able to do it for myself. And now I'm excited to do it for other parents and even especially for my own household. And so that's me in a nutshell. It's just called to heal.
I love the paths that God has us on, right? Like you went from someone who said, I don't really want to bring children into the world, all the way to, hey, I'm a parenting coach and I have 6 children. Don't you love that?
Beautiful? Yes.
Like he's like, I know what I'm doing here. Like, yes, you have your feelings and yes, you have your thoughts. I know. I didn't want to be a parent either. I wish mine was for the same reasons. It wasn't. I think I just, I was one of those, I had some beautiful friends that grew up and they wanted to play, if I'm thinking about when I was a young girl, like they wanted to play baby dolls or they wanted to play mom or they wanted to do that. I wanted to play teacher or I wanted to play educator or like, I think I was just a very career focused person. I had a brother, so I did have a sibling, and we had a great relationship. But motherhood wasn't really something that was on my mind. But I had other friends where I knew it was definitely on their mind, and so I would look and say, maybe I'm not supposed to have children. And so I was never opposed to it, but I just wondered if that was really something I even wanted.
Right.
And then it was kind of the same thing with me about meeting my husband and getting married. And I was like, I want a family with him. Like, I want to do this Christian life together. I want to have a family. I want to make a difference, and just in our little part of the world. So, and they have been the most beautiful, fun ride that we've had. So it's I just see God looking at us and being like, they're there. Like, we're going to get you there. Your path, your way. Like, I've got this. I've got this. Just be obedient. Just walk. And I've got this.
I love that so much.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, because he's orchestrating it all, and it's okay to be present. And so through that journey, I've definitely learned to just be who he called me to be. That's when life is good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so true. So tell me a little bit about, did you have this picture of motherhood growing up? I know you said you weren't even sure that you wanted to do that, or like, and so so once you did decide, hey, I'm in on this motherhood thing, did you have an idea of like, I would like this many kids, or I would like to do it this way?
Well, my mom, I'm one of 11 children.
Okay.
And so my parents have been married 52 years now, this year. And my mom was exceptional. She was just so good at it. And I remember thinking I didn't want to do all that stuff she was doing for sure. I was like, yeah, no, I'm good on manual labor. So, but when I wanted to do it and I thought about it, I knew there were things I would shift and change. But my mom was definitely that model. She had this, my mom's story is unique in that her parents were passed before she had her first child.
Oh, okay.
So by the time she was 17, she had lost both her parents. And so she didn't have a lot of examples for her. But she leaned into the Holy Spirit to speak life over us. I remember my mom telling me, you're meant to be wealthy. You're meant to do things. And I was like, oh, okay. I never cared about money. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. But she had this awareness of, Calvina, you're different. You're going to stand out. Even among my 11 children, you're different. You're special. And so she just used the Holy Spirit to guide. And I remember knowing that, okay, God, if we're doing this, let's do it. So what are you calling these children to do? And so before they even came, I was with my husband. I've been with my husband 22 years. Met him at 18, so been a while. And didn't get married for 8 years because I was working on my degrees and my PhD and everything. And during that time of preparation, I was preparing. I literally was writing about them and praying about them. Wow. Who would they be? I knew I didn't want just a few. I knew 2 wasn't going to do it. You know, everybody's like 2. And I was like, God, no. For some reason, having 11 siblings, I remember sometimes thinking that y'all might do this, but I can't do this. I have a lot of people to answer to. And I like that idea. I was like, that's a good parenting tip. Because if it's a lot of us and we have our thing, even if it's not in number, but we need to have a thing. We need to have a way that we can direct our children towards that doesn't feel comfortable to veer away from. And so I thought about numbers being important. And so before we got married, me and my husband agreed that, at least 4. And so here we are at 6.
Yes, and your youngest is how old?
2 months today.
2 months today.
2 months.
So sweet.
It's the best.
I love it. I love those baby snuggles.
Yes.
So you talked a lot about your mom and that model that you had for her. And you said something that she spoke. It sounds like she spoke life into you.
Did.
She spoke prophetically over you,
Yes,
what
she
she
did.
saw. How did that play out with you, like growing up, or even what you pursued, like knowing that your mom had spoken that over you? Like, what was the power of that playing out?
I think it's almost hard to... My chest got really full when you asked me that question, partly because of what you said earlier about God, in that he has this whole journey and this whole wisdom about where we're going, how we start and where we're going. And it's amazing because my mom, and it's just such a perfect example of why family is so important, because my mom did the same thing. she had this vision, and she knew, and she listened to God to direct me, but I couldn't respond to it for a while.
Yeah.
Just the same way is that, if God would have been like, oh, you're going to have all these kids, I would have been like, please just, why are you even doing me like this? Like, I just can't even go there with you. And so that's the beauty of the journey with God, and even with my mom. It's just, I could not picture that I would be here at all. She gave me a model so I could follow it, but I just couldn't picture what she was calling me into. Mm-hmm. And even as I have professionally established and accomplished some things that I just didn't even have in my mind. And so what it has done for me is teach me to be present. Whatever I'm in or doing right now today, I'm just going to give it everything I have. And one of my favorite saying is that it's above my pay grade. So where it's going to take me, that's above my pay grade. And so I'm just going to do it as if unto God every single day, whatever that is. And so even with what my mom has spoken over me, I'm just kind of like being present with it. And she just, it's like, look, I told you. I look at what's happening. And I'm just like, okay. I'm still just kind of on this journey with being fully present in every moment, everything that God put before me. I'm going to give it everything and make sure he's honored. And I'm always surprised. I literally am still completely surprised by, oh my God. You want me to?
Me too.
This is what I'm going to be writing for one of the biggest, platforms. Like, seriously, that's what we're doing. Okay.
Well, she writes for Psychology Today, if anybody wants to know that in the mental health world.
Yes, and my blog is the Parenting Playbook, and it's been going really, really well. But I'm always shocked.
If you need resources, parents.
Yes, lots of resources.
There we go. And I think about my own journey. And what I realized one day was, I know that my mom prayed over me. I know that she did. She was not as much of an outward speaker in those places, but I know that she was a prayer. And so was my grandmother. My grandmother was an intercessor, and I didn't understand that as a younger person. But I understand it now looking back. And what God really revealed to me was that she always said I was going to be a teacher. And she was just like, you're going to be an educator. You're going to be a teacher. And my grandmother was a teacher. She went back in her 40s and got her degree to go teach, actually. Wow. And which is a whole cool story in and of itself. She lived in the mountains and had a Bronco and forded rivers. And I mean, just all this kind of stuff to get her degree. So it was a great story. And she was a wonderful educator. But I remember thinking, like, I called her Mimi. I was like, okay, Mimi, I'm going to be a counselor. And then I end up being the director of a counseling center for higher education for 11 years at a university. And God was like, this is what she meant. Like, you're an ed. And I was like, oh, all the things she spoke over me and prayed. Like, I had this kind of limited view of what I thought that meant. But I am walking in the prayers presently that were prayed for me. Yeah. Years and years and years ago. And so that is just such an amazing, the seeds that we can sow as a parent, as a grandparent, don't give up. Pray those prayers over your loved ones, over your children, over your grandchildren. You don't know the seeds that you're planting now that they will reap in joy, righteousness, their future. You don't know what is coming for that. So please be encouraged that your children and grandchildren can reap the blessings of those prayers that you are sowing today.
Yes, I love it.
It's powerful.
Yes, it is.
So powerful.
Like you said, it's just like God, if we're paying attention to who God called us to be, that we would understand. Like I said, everything goes through family, that your role can't be minimized. Sometimes I talk to parents and they're just, I'm just a mother. And I'm like, what? Do you even understand what you're saying? Do you understand the stewardship and the power and the leadership that you are responsible for? I can't even, I'm like, I wish I can put it inside of you. And I will try. And I have been pretty successful at getting people to understand the power of it, because it's too serious. It's too important for you to say, I'm just a mother.
Yeah.
I'm just a professor, but I'm a mother. Like,
I'm just a counselor.
Yeah. But the mother is my gift to the world. And it's God's
it's our
gift
ministry.
to me. It is a full out. I always say, we had a family meeting yesterday, which we do. We have family meetings, and we were saying, we have to run that house like a corporation. It's 8 of us. It's a lot of us. And so I'm like, this is serious. This is God's work. There is no minimization that you can do. And I think culturally, we allow culture to get in the way, and we cannot.
So much.
We cannot. If you're a mother, you are a gift, and I'm thanking God for you. And I just want to make sure that I support mothers and support fathers. And people contact me from everywhere about everything, and I'm like, okay, we can do this. Like, this is possible. And that's why, I wrote my parenting course, and I'm working on a parenting app, which will be ready soon. I'm really excited about that relationship I built. But this is serious, and you have to take it serious. In my TEDx, I talk about parenting being like, it should treat it like a career. We don't show up to careers halfway. We don't. Nobody's going to show up to an interview. I don't know who at the company is. I'm just here. Well, let's see what happens. But parenting, we do, right? It's like, oh, let's just see what happens. It's like, no, thank you. We shouldn't be doing that. This is serious work, and it's life-changing work. And so you can't take it lightly. You have to treat it like we do careers. And I wish I was saying treat careers like motherhood, because it should be the other way, or parenting.
Yeah.
'Cause it should be the other way. Mm-hmm. But careers is what we respect, unfortunately, in our society. And so if you think about what you did to get the job, you made a decision about it, you decided to educate yourself, you decided to get skills, you decided to prepare yourself. You weren't going to show up like, hey, let's see what I get. But parenting, we do, I might get a good one or a bad one. What do you mean? Person? Like, what are we talking about here? No, you have to show up with everything you have. I was writing and preparing. It's like, okay, if I'm going to do this, it's on. Like, let's do this. And so I'm thinking about it and praying, Lord, show me who they are. And by the time they're in my body, I know exactly who they are. Like, I've talked to God about it. We're ready to help steward this life. And that should be taken that seriously.
Yeah, I love that. So we'll stop there. Just a recap. Looking at parenthood, motherhood, parenthood, as like we do preparing for a career. Mm-hmm. And God's going to meet us there. And he'll talk to us about the children that we have, the children that we're going to have. Yeah. He will give us that information. So that's a great place to stop. You all are listening to The Merge. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Narrow Gate Counseling, providing professional counseling where you are, at home, at work, or on the go. Our virtual counseling services are convenient, affordable, and accessible on any device. For a free consultation, call 888-9-NARROW. That's 888-962-7769. Connect and learn more now at narrowgatecounseling.com.
Okay, hello, welcome back. You are listening to the Merge podcast, where faith and mental health meet. And I'm your host, LynnDee Horn, and we are here today with Dr. Calvina Ellerbe talking about faith, mental health, and motherhood. So tell me what surprised you. I've got 3 things myself, but tell me what surprised you most about motherhood.
The first one is, real cheesy, but it is what it is. I think how I was forced to be present. That's the first thing. If you're watching somebody grow, I was forced to be present. Because so much about our lives, especially in this country, you're just moving. And you're trying to get to the next thing. And when is the next thing happening? And working on my PhD, I remember just feeling like, okay, I got to, cross these things off my list. And literally, especially now having a newborn, even right now, I was forced to be present. And I realized I just started living almost. It's kind of a weird way to say it, but that's how I felt. And it surprised me. Where like, oh my gosh, I'm finally actually experiencing life in a more full way. And I think that's the first thing that really surprised me, because I was just like, and I'm going to do this, and they're going to be this. Like you kind of come to it with that same kind of checklist mindset. And I'm going to make sure they have this, and I'm going to make sure that. And I didn't care about any of it. I could care less if the crib was right, if they had a stuffed animal. Like, I didn't care about any of it. And I just liked the person and just being engaged and locked in that interaction with them. Mm-hmm. It was the most freeing thing I ever experienced in my life. And I think that kind of surprised me. The second thing, I think, is what a lot of us experience, that I actually just I make content for a couple organizations, and I just wrote a blog about not losing yourself in motherhood and how to avoid that. What happens to mothers, and it surprises most of us, I think, is that there's this excitement about creating a life, and then you have this experience, and then you tell it, then you reveal it, right? And that's an exciting thing. It's like, 2024, expected number such as, and there's this excitement.
We post it, and we get creative with all these. Mm-hmm,
right,
mm-hmm.
And you want to do this fun stuff, and everybody cares, right? Those are the posts that really get a lot of attention. And so you get all this attention, and then gender reveal, and you get all this attention, and then baby shower. And so you get used to
get gifts and attention.
Yes, gifts, attention, anything you need, and everyone cares. But nobody cares about changing diapers. Nobody cares. Nobody's like, you're not going to post about it, and people are going to be like, you know what? I'm proud of you. That post is not going to get attention. Yeah. You're not going to get any attention. And so there's this huge drop off, and it's a cultural thing. It's really not about motherhood. It's about culture. Mm-hmm. That I'm gonna celebrate you for the cute things and the milestones and the things that you can do showy, but then I remember their loneliness of actually doing it every day a little bit, because nobody celebrated me when I washed the dishes. Nobody's there. There's no celebration for I held the baby while we napped. Mm-hmm. Okay, good for you. But nobody cares. And so that kind of, I remember thinking, this isn't serving us mothers very well, that we don't have this kind of awareness that the world only celebrates us when we're showy, but when we're doing the real work that matters, because it does.
Work,
this is all the attachment things we do by just holding our babies, and then the culture try to tell you to sit your baby down, and they're going to be spoiled. It's like, you can't spoil a baby. Where y'all getting this stuff from?
Thank you for saying that.
Yes, you cannot spoil a baby.
Hold that baby
all day for hours. Get the attachment going. They will be better humans. Please take care of them. I mean, it's something I teach in my course, in my writings. I'm just like, come on, y'all. Like, get this idea out of your head. But it's so important to realize. And once I realized what was happening, I was like, okay, I can take power back from this. And so that loneliness, I could take the power back from, but it happened. And it happens to so many of us, because it's just kind of you. And then there's this pressure on mothers to do it all right. Do it all. Like, you had this baby, you should know everything and not need any support. And it's like, where did that come from? Like, I just made this up. And so that kind of surprised me, is that the support wouldn't always be there. That's shocking, and it should be. And I'm confident that part of a lot of the postpartum issues that we experience is simply cultural. A lot of it is just straight up cultural. I mean, there's hormonal things that happen for sure, but the support isn't there for a lot of us. You just kind of get left. It's like, okay, after the reveal and the baby's here, right? And then everyone cares. But then it kind of goes away.
Yeah, absolutely. I, with my first one, I went through, I wouldn't fully call it postpartum depression, but I, as a counselor, I was definitely asking myself that. But I definitely felt that dip. I felt there was just because of some things that happened with birth, there was just a disconnection, and it took a little while to really get that. And I'm just thankful that I knew what was going on, and I knew I just needed time. So I was able to work through that, but that was just because this is, in a lot of ways, this is my career. I had tools, I had resources that most people don't have.
Right.
So that was definitely, I didn't experience anything like that with my second, but with my first one, I did. So I understand that. Here's the other thing that was really interesting to me when I was doing some research just recently to see what would come up. There is, from a mental health standpoint, there's a lot of research around when a woman is pregnant to up to a year after they give birth. And then crickets. Which just gives credence to what you're saying, right? We are not after that first year and the cute baby pictures and the months and the your birthday milestone, there's not even research being done for the most part that you can from a scholarly standpoint find about just motherhood and mental health, because this is forever. Some people just say the 18 years, but I don't know. I don't mind that. I'm always going to be a mom.
For sure.
So, it goes on forever. And nobody's really, they're not talking about it. We can't find research on it. I can't find solid statistics on it anywhere for a podcast. It was shocking to me of the lack of information there for moms just going through everyday motherhood.
Because it's not flashy, it's not pretty, it's not cute,
but so many of us are living it.
Yeah, and that's the concern for me, and I think that's why I've been so focused on parents. I'm like, because the support isn't there. We don't have enough support. We gather to talk about all the stuff we hate, but not fully to support. It's like, oh, terrible tools and and I'm exhausted with listening to people vilify children. Children aren't the problem.
Thank you. Yes.
They're the solution
children.
in a lot of ways. I became more me once I had a child. And the more children I have, I become more me. I learn more about me. I get closer to who God called me to be. I am curious as to how people do it without children. I don't know how. I think you just have to really be in the Bible because I become more because I'm forced. And I think there's a beauty in that, being honest about the fact that a lot of times if we don't have to, we won't. and I thank God for children because they force me to reflect.
Yes. One of the things I was the most surprised about, and yes, I'm admitting this on a podcast, is how limited my capacity was. And that really goes back to the pride that I felt that I had. I really had to deal with that because I have fortunately been able to be competent in the places that I chose before motherhood to follow into, or that I felt like that God was leading me into. I really felt good about those things. And then when I became a mom, that limited capacity, or the things that I couldn't get done anymore, or that it made me have to lean on God.
Yes.
It also really challenged my ideals. LynnDee, are these actually biblical?
Yes.
The standards that you had, the patterns that you've seen. What do you need to get rid of that's not serving you well anymore? Because it's okay that you're exactly where you are. It's the way that you're seeing this that's the problem.
Yes.
And so in pursuing motherhood for me, like you said, I don't know how people do it. It's been a very sanctifying, sacrificing, beautiful experience walking through how God leads you through it.
Surrendering experience.
Yes. Great word. Yes.
That's my favorite word. And the Holy Spirit dealt with me about that years ago. And because even in my marriage, trying to control, it got to be just a certain way. And, social media does a good job at destroying our truth. Does a really good job at showing images, and nobody knows the journey. And most of the images are not even real. And so it's like...
or they were only that image for that split second it took. And then everything else is going on in the background afterwards.
Because you'll be looking at your spouse crazy, looking at your children crazy because of somebody, my child did this one thing. And then, the rest of the day they're spitting pea soup, but you didn't show me that. You didn't show me that at all. And so... and that's another thing I talk about is, trying to avoid comparison, because when you do the comparison, it's always a fake comparison. Like 100% of the time, it's a fake comparison. It's not even a real thing. Like, even if they generally can demonstrate or present things a certain way, their journey is what you're missing. You know your journey because you're in it. You can't avoid knowing your journey, but you can't see theirs. And so theirs always is going to look better because it's a finished product.
Yes.
100% of the time going to look better. But I love what you said about perspective, because it's my favorite thing.
Yes. And it's needed. It's so needed for us to be able to be who we need to be and walk out motherhood, parenting in a godly way.
Yeah. It's above our pay grade.
Yes, it is. So much, so much. The other thing that really surprised me about motherhood was how powerful childbirth can be. And I know that there's a different experience for that, and we won't spend a lot of time here on this podcast talking about it, but I think that's when, and I know certain women can't have that experience or things happen, but just in general, bringing life into the world was powerful in a way as a woman that I had not experienced before. And I felt a little bit like I had a superpower there for a minute.
I definitely feel like I have a superpower.
And it was great. Like,
yes.
I just felt so
yes.
thankful that God had made me that way and I was allowed to experience it. So that surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. And it was a wonderful gift.
Yeah, you're talking to the one, right? Because I've had 6 home births. I mean, I knew that I didn't know it would feel just that powerful. But once I understood to trust God in all things, and I really, and I know it's culturally is very, very hard because when I was focusing on teaching my birth classes before I got fully into parenting, the hardest thing for the 12 weeks I spent with mothers was reshaping their thoughts about themselves. Because we do a lot to minimize and undervalue just basic womanhood.
Yes.
Our bodies is, the cycles. And it's so we won't lean into it. Like we complain about cycles. We complain about birth. Everything's bad about it. But it's because we're trying to fight it. Anything that you're going to fight is going to feel worse. Like if I got to get up and go to work and I get up and complain about it the whole time, it's going to feel terrible.
Yes.
And so when I don't experience the disconnect with my body anymore because I learned to love it. And I was one that used to be really, really sick in my body because we live in a culture that don't prepare women to lean into the cycles and understand that this is a sick sign you have to tell you about your health. Once I learned that, I don't have any more discomforts and pains because you're telling me something. This is a communication.
Yes.
That's such a powerful gift that God has given us to have the communication, to let us know. I mean, we live longer than men, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the reasons. We got something talking to us all the time to say, hey, that doesn't feel right. Do something about it. Mm-hmm. And I think we don't honor it. And I've been able to and willing to totally trust God, and it's been the most wonderful thing. I mean, my most recent birth, I'll say that. My most recent birth was just so beautiful. I mean, it was so peaceful. I mean, my husband was there. Obviously, being at home is wonderful. And, he was just encouraging me and supporting me. And we was just able to have this kind of intimate moment. 5 hours of labor, 1 push, and I had a baby. And it was, I've learned how to be so connected with it. And so there is no better word than superpower. I feel so capable, and I feel beautiful, actually. I feel beautiful. I feel capable because it literally feels like it's tapping into a higher plane almost. Uh-huh. There's no career, no job accomplishment that even gets close.
No, you're right. That's very true. So we have a few more minutes before we go to the next break. And I want to talk about this because I think this is a fun place. I think the other thing for me that surprised me about motherhood is how fun it is to have children. I didn't hear anything about that
Nobody
before.
Talks about it.
People would talk about how, you need to be prepared financially, or it's going to be the hardest but the most rewarding. And I'm not saying that's not true. Those things are true. But nobody looked at me and said, LynnDee, having kids is fun.
I love that.
And I wish they would have, because it is.
It is.
And I know, again, that there are people that have challenges. Maybe your parenting journey isn't looking the way that you wanted, and it's not always fun. I understand that. But there is a joy. There can be a joy in tapping into how children see the world. I mean, Jesus even said, "Come to me like a little child."
Yes.
I mean, there's a reason that faith.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
It is.
I wish I had heard that
fun.
before.
Yeah. It is really fun.
Beforehand. I think we might have had some more.
Yeah. I love that, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because parents need to hear that. I mean, I when you listen to children, again, I draw closer to Christ. I draw closer to Him easier, because my children will just say, "Well, just have faith." I mean, something that happened 6 years ago now that was super scary. My son, it was 2, and he was eating grapes, and I saw him chewing them. I thought he was chewing, but maybe he was just rolling around in his mouth or something. But I didn't know it, but he had swallowed 4 whole grapes, and he started choking. And he turned around because I was looking at the back of his head, and I saw him, so I'm thinking I got him. He's right here. He's at the coffee table. I'm on the sofa. We're together. And he started choking. And he turned around. It was like, just couldn't breathe. And so immediately I started patting him on his back, and I started trying to get it out his throat. And I'm like doing the things I know to do, and nothing was working. And I felt like something go deeper in his throat, and I was like, oh my gosh. And he started literally shifting his color. I was losing him, and I froze. I literally froze. His little sister, his big sister, who was 4, he was 2, she was 4, literally grabbed him by the shoulders and said, Mom, looked at me like I was crazy. She said, what are you doing? Let's pray. She literally said, what are you doing? Like, you raised me to believe that God can heal him and heal these things. What is your problem? Like, she chastised me immediately. And she grabbed him by the shoulders and said, start praying. She went into a prayer. She said, what are you doing? And just went, Lord, heal my brother. And immediately, he started bringing up the grapes. And I didn't know there was 4. I didn't know until I saw him. It was like blood with it, just like a little bit. And he was fine. And she literally, I think she looked at me with like disrespect for the rest of the day. Like, I thought you was a believer. Like, what is going on here? But again, it's just they're totally pure and they trust.
Yes.
And this is why God say come like this. And that's how I increasingly learned to look at them. If I was Daphne, I'd do this. And it's really fun because they just, and my Ava, she's now 5. She literally says all the time, Mom, you know my favorite thing? And I'm like, what, Ava? God. And she says it just like that.
I love that.
And she has like a little drawl to her voice. She's like, God. I'm like, okay. And so you just smile, and there's just this joy and this fulfillment. And nothing fulfills me that way.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, same here. So yes, there is joy in having children and
parenting and mothering,
yes.
and fathering.
So we are at another break. We will be back in just a minute. Thank you for listening to The Merge, and we'll see you in a minute.
Narrow Gate Counseling, providing professional counseling where you are. At home, at work, or on the go. Our virtual counseling services are convenient, affordable, and accessible on any device. For a free consultation, call 888-9-NARROW. That's 888-962-7769. Connect and learn more now at narrowgatecounseling.com.
Well, hello. Welcome back to The Merge. My name is LynnDee Horn. I'm your host, and we are here talking to Dr. Calvina Ellerbe about motherhood today and faith and mental health. So we're going to end on this. Do you have certain godly principles or faith or verses that you apply to being a mom or a parent?
I don't know any other way. Absolutely. I think before they came, I was praying about it because I took it so seriously. I didn't think it would be a light job and my child would just be good and that type of thing. And so one thing God showed to me early is there will be world changers, that they will bring something that few might have seen before, because they will be like disciples. They will literally walk this thing out. And I'm going to show you how. And so the word that I used earlier, surrendering, is taking up my cross daily, is literally realizing that I do not have all the answers, and I have to trust him in this journey. And in trusting him, they'll be okay. And so that always stood out. The scripture that literally carries me daily is Psalms 127, 3-5. And just, children are a reward from the Lord. And they're like arrows in the hands of a warrior. A warrior's trained. They don't wake up in the morning and start fighting, swinging arms everywhere. They actually train first. And so I just love the insight that God put in his word. I mean, the word of God is delicious. Yeah, it's like literally
such a great word. Yes.
Delicious. And it's so exciting because that word is so much in that little scripture. They are a reward. They're his gift to me. That, listen, I know if I just tell you all these things, you might not be able to consume it fully. But if I let you live as a parent, like I am your father, you'll be able to see them and connect better with them. And that they are like arrows, that they are meant to go out into the world with a clear direction. Because a warrior, if they're gonna have a bow and arrow, they're gonna know how to send it out. They're gonna know how to get it there. They're gonna know where it's going. And so being willing to be present in that journey with Christ so that I can be trained by him to be what they need and then direct them. A gift that God has given me as a parent is he shows me all of my children's spiritual gifts in womb. In utero, I know exactly what their spiritual gifts are. I can feel it, and it's very clear to me. And so knowing that when they exhibit things that can seem shocking, confusing, or whatever else, I already know. I'm like, yeah, I know why you don't want to listen to me. Because you're meant to lead. Like this is a part of your journey that I have to be okay guiding and stewarding like an arrow, right? Like you don't just, throw an arrow blindly. You steward it. You direct it very carefully. And I think you aim it. Mm-hmm. It has guided everything for me. I mean, it's kind of like using the concept of, parenting being a career is you don't just wake up and go get a job. You say, okay, which one do I want? How do I want to educate myself? Like you spend the time. And so with parenting, that's been super important to me. It's just surrendering. And I teach them to do the same thing. Even if you don't have a gift, look to your sister, look to your brother. They might have it. They probably have it. And so we don't have honestly, we don't have any sibling rivalry at our house because they're looking at each other as tools for the kingdom. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I have to work on my heart because I'm not that humble, but you have a beautiful heart. And so I point out to each them the spiritual gifts that God gave to each of them. And so everyone knows, okay, little Larry, what did God give you? Oh, giving me the spirit of love. And so I will tend to notice the needs of people before I'll notice what they need to do for me, which can be a problem if you don't.
Yes, it can.
If you don't treat it right. And so I also have to steward. I teach them their strengths in the gifts they have.
what the pitfalls can be in that.
So that they always know. And so they know to pay attention to the trick. I always call it the trick. There's a trick in everything if you're not careful. And so they know to pay attention to those things. And so I feel honored as a parent to have this walk with Christ so that I can pay close attention to what I'm supposed to do.
Yes, that's awesome. I posted on social media asking, hey, I'm doing this podcast. What do you all want to hear about? And one of the posts specifically said, how do we balance our mental health among all the hats that we have to wear as moms? And Dr. Ellerbe and I both have really been talking about digging in that place of having your own walk with the Lord. Mm-hmm. And just, I'll give you a couple here for me. One of the things that I've had to do consistently is give him all of my feelings, all of them, all of my concerns, all of my feelings, all of my frustrations, take them to him first. Because if I can do that and get clarity, if I can get comfort, if I can get what I need, my needs met from him, then I can meet my children's needs well.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how messy we come. It doesn't matter if we're in full tears. It doesn't matter if we are angry. Just give them to him and ask him for his truth, or his comfort, or his love, or his approval, whatever we are needing in that moment, so that then we can be who we need to be, fully present and healthy for our children. The other thing that I really do is pray. I really pray for strategy. I ask God, I am seeing this in my child. What do I do about it? Or if it's not even about my children, I have these 5 things on my plate today, Lord. Which one should I do first? I ask him what the order of my list should be, because he knows things I don't know. He already knows how the day's going to play out.
Yes.
And if I'm giving that to him, then there doesn't have to be shame, guilt, condemnation, anything that would happen if I've given it to him and he said, focus on these and the other ones drop. Well, I already gave it to him with that. So there's even a freeing of, well, I don't have to get everything done here. I focused on the things that were the most important.
Yes.
And so even giving our task list to the Lord and saying, hey, what should I do first? Because sometimes as a mom, I'm tired and I can't make sense of all of it. So, whatever's happened, I've slept bad that night or you've got a sick child. Like sometimes things happen and this brain that I've been given is foggy. And so I have to take it back to Him and ask for strategy on my day, on my children, all of those things, and just find those systems that work for you. I think that helps me juggle it. And I'm not saying I'm juggling it well, but I am juggling it in front of the Lord, and I feel Him saying, like, you've got this, LynnDee. You've got it. So it's just it's a consistent daily surrender, like you just said. I think that word's just perfect.
Something that comes to my mind is hope. When we're trying to deal with our mental health, hope is so important. I often ask parents when I'm doing sessions and coaching and that type of thing, I often ask you, why do you have children? Why? And even if they may not have always been in the plans, now that they're here, what do you want for them? Try to lean in and focusing on that. That often helps our mental health when we have hope. Purpose and knowing your why, knowing why am I doing this? What do I want for their life? What do I want for their journey? What do I want them to become? It's a motivator. And when we feel hope and motivation, it's very, very hard to feel lost and empty because we're moving towards a higher calling. And that's what God gives us. That's why He provides our identity. And when we give our children identity and we put our identity in Him, it's very difficult to kind of lose sight. And so always reminding parents to be present with, why are you doing this? And what is your purpose? Like I said, for our household, we're meant to change the world. We're meant to come here on purpose to demonstrate and be an example. My husband said that in our vows, and I didn't even understand it then. Because we decided for our vows to just say whatever God put on our heart. We weren't going to prepare anything. And so whatever came out of our mouth in front of everybody is what we did. And it was so fun. And I was like completely shocked at what came out of his mouth because he was just like, Calvina, like we were pretty young. And so a lot of people were like, why are y'all getting married? Like, what do y'all get married for, y'all? And I'm like, I'm not that young. Like, good Lord. But, he was just like, we're meant to be an example. That's what we were called to do. And so I'm always looking at, even in washing these dishes, there's a purpose and a plan. I mean, it all leads to something bigger. And when you have your eyes and your sights on higher things and not paying attention to, I hate washing dishes. I don't want to sweep the floor. And look at the mess over here. It's easy to stay present and stay higher and stay connected to good and hope and motivation and purpose, because that is it's kind of the food for life.
Yes,
is that we eat purpose, we eat on motivation, and that's what the Holy Spirit gives us. If you read the Bible, He's always saying, keep your eyes on things that are higher. Don't
Philippians
focus on
4:8.
Yeah,
think what is pure, what is lovely, what is admirable, what is excellent. Yes,
that's what He calls us to do, and so it keeps my mind stable, keeps my heart focused, because the house is messy.
Yes.
But so what? Like, I'm just not so focused on it. I do feel better when the house is clean. I mean,
me too.
That's okay. But I'm not
and
gonna
I revel in those very short moments.
I'm not gonna be so focused on the fact that, you know what, this is a mess, that I can't chase my child across the house, because that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have a great time. I can't just look at the baby squirm or whatever. Like, I'm just gonna look at this, because this is bigger. This is what's real. This is what's forever.
Yeah.
The house will get clean eventually, or I'll move out or something. Like it'll be there. But this legacy, this human being, is what lasts.
Yes,
they're gonna last. What they do, how they connect, how I connect with them, that's gonna last. And so it's really hard for me to find myself down. Like losing sight of who He called me to be. That to me has been everything, with not losing my peace with God. Yes. Because I'm focusing on children and focusing on Him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are a mom on purpose.
Yes.
You are a mom on mission.
Yes.
And we can all do this.
Yes. It's the mission. I say this all the time. We're all on mission. Yes. I say that. Like, everybody's on mission. You know what your mission is. You're going to bring joy into the world. My child, who is easily distracted, play like jumping around all the time. I mean, she's also an exceptional gymnast, but she's so that child that is like a lot of times, you know, they're difficult to steward because they are all over the place, and they seem absent-minded, and you might have told them something 17 times, and they're like, "What?" Like, I just told you 1.5 million times, but she has this joy and freedom that I can learn from, and I have, and her heart is so pure. And as a child, it can look rough, and I think remembering that we're not raising them to be children, that often throws off a lot of parents. You're not raising them to be a child. You're raising them to be thriving adults. And if you focus on that, one question that helps me maintain peace and clarity is asking God, who did you call them to be? You didn't call them to be just my child.
No.
You called them to be operating in your kingdom. So who did you call this child to be? So yes, they're making a mess and screaming and singing, you know, they're acting up. Well, who do you call them to be? Because you didn't just call them to be my child. That's part of their journey, but only a part and a small part. If you think about how long we're adults,
Yes.
they're only a child for like 45 seconds if you compare it, right? So it's forever. I mean, they're going to be an adult for a very long time. So who did you call them to be? That's a question I always think about. Like, it's similar to what you're saying. It's like, okay, what do you want me to do with this child right now? And when I remember who God called them to be, then I get a clarity on, that's why you're doing this right now. You need to understand what it feels like to go against. So it feels like you're coming against me, but this is something you got to practice because you're going to go against the culture.
That's so good. That's so good. Well, I have loved our conversation today. We are out of time, which just means we're going to have to do this again. Okay?
Yes.
So I want to leave you and our listeners with this blessing from Numbers 6, 24 through 26. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Thank you, everyone, for listening to The Merge, where faith and mental health meet, and we will talk next time.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
You've been listening to The Merge, hosted by LynnDee Horn. You can always find a copy and catch up on past episodes. Just subscribe to The Merge anywhere you listen to podcasts.